What's up everybody, I'm Mr. Cheebs. In this video I want to talk about a problem that I really struggled with when I started using Blender, and that is HDRI lighting. In this scene I've got two models for a bit of interest from one of my current projects. You can actually download these from my Patreon, link in the description. Right now I don't have any lighting, just this gray world. You all probably know how HDRI environment textures work, so I'll throw one of those into my scene with an environment texture node in the world editor. Let's select an HDRI file, which you can get from hdrihaven.com for free. Now once that's in there, the problem isn't exactly apparent, and at first glance this looks fine, especially if we switch over to the Cycles render engine so that the environment casts shadows without baking our lights. However, there is one big problem with this that we can see better if I hop into the camera view with numpad 0. Looking at this, I don't know if you guys get this sense, but the lighting just feels kind of off. And in my experimentation, there's one main reason why. HDRI lighting is not configured for your specific scene or your specific objects. These environment maps are pretty amazing, but they just don't provide the control that you get when using light objects. If you've been using Blender for a while, then of course this might not be huge news for you, but I know that when I was starting out this was a really big problem for me, and here's why. I would download an HDRI that somewhat fits the mood I'm going for, throw it into my scene, and call it a day, because that's what I thought everyone else did, and that's what I believed you were supposed to do for realistic lighting. And I just want to say it straight, that's completely wrong. Obviously, that was a mistake of mine, but I want to say that for anyone else who's getting started with Blender and might be running into this problem. I see it thrown around a lot online that HDRI lighting is what you should be using, and I do agree with that. However, it is a starting point and not a destination, and that's a message that I clearly missed when I started with my Blender journey, and that I really want to convey to you guys. Now that is not to say that HDRI environment maps don't have a place. If you're doing a VFX shot or want complete photorealism, then you probably know more than me and you should be using them. I do use HDRI maps frequently in my workflow, and I'll show you how I do that in a minute. I just want to say, for anyone getting started with lighting, stop trying to use only environment maps. Now then, let's do some node stuff, and I'll show you how I use them now for my model presentations and my scenes. The main things you can start out by doing is rotating the environment and removing the background. To move the environment around, just add in a texture coordinate and a mapping node, or use Ctrl-T if you have the Node Wrangler add-on enabled, which I highly recommend. With this, we can change the Z rotation, and it will rotate the environment around. Next, having this in the background honestly doesn't look too great, but we can easily get rid of it. If you go over to the rendering settings and open up this film menu, you can toggle on the transparency and the background will disappear. If you want a colored background though, you could also do this with nodes. Add in a background shader and a mix shader and connect that all up like so. Next we need a light path node, and we need to plug the isCameraRay output into the factor of the mix shader. This leaves us with the scene lighting of the first input, but the background color of the second node, which is pretty sick. Now, I generally make some adjustments to the original HDRI, and we could do things like that, such as increasing the contrast with a bright contrast node, or making color adjustments with a hue saturation node. And for my general workflow, it goes like this. I'll start by adding in my environment texture node and my HDRI map, and I'll sometimes make a few adjustments to that with nodes such as increasing the brightness or saturation, things of that nature. Then I'll remove the background with the mix shader and start adding in some light objects to add emphasis to areas of the scene. The HDRI is still useful in a case like this for adding some general illumination and filling in the reflections and shadows, but the main direction of the scene is still controlled by the lights I add in and hand place. With this way, I can ensure that I'm getting light in the correct areas while still getting the reflections and the fill that HDRIs are excellent at. So hopefully that clears some things up. HDRIs are not an end-all be-all solution. They are to be used as a starting point, and you'll usually want to add in some other lights so you can direct the lighting with more control. Maybe this was just a problem that I faced, but I still wanted to make this video. So, if you guys have an opinion on this, or have some other techniques that can improve the lighting provided by these environment maps, go ahead and leave that in the comments down below. Thank you all for watching, and have a great day.